Hey guys, Risso Audette here and today bring you a video. Yu-Gi-Oh! Called Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel So Much Stories. Flaming Maelstroms of War. High Tide on Fire Island. Give me a minute. Let's begin. Also playing this in the background. Sign of Star explained by Giving Harry.
Could call the natural ending. Walking into the worship hall after witnessing the deaths of her parents at the hands of the other Hinako, she's confronted by Junko, who is surprised that Hinako is still clinging to life. Confused as to how Junko is on their side, Hinako starts to freak out, saying that this is a bad place, and taking some of the red capsules, Junko is concerned and asks what they are. Hinako says that they calm her down. Junko then appears to freeze in place, and Hinako smashes at the altar with the offerings on it. Masked Hinako, the Shiramuku, shows up, and furious that this Hinako killed her friends and her the natural ending. Walking
Let's bring this video here.
With Thriven, your financial journey
When
isn't
the
a
Finnick
solo
Ghost
mission. Your money is a
gets
tool to support
obsessed
people,
and it's
causes,
going.
and community you love. Because sometimes all you need to make a difference is someone to help you make it happen. Thriven, where money means more.
Mountain Performance TV is the hardest working software in television. Get started today at mountain.com.
His love life. This is a charming and spooky coming-of-age story until things take a dark turn. This is Anya's Ghost. Hello friends, this is Grief speaking, and this week we're going to be going through Anya's Ghost. This comic is not really a horror comic, and it's not even that scary, but it is one of those comics that just seems unavoidable. Not only is it loved by critics and comic book lovers alike, but I've gotten dozens of comments and even some emails requesting that I cover it. So while it's not as disturbing as some of the usual twisted stuff I cover, it does have a ghost, and that's close enough to horror for me. Honestly, this is just a great story. Sometimes it's hilarious, sometimes it's heart-wrenching, and it does have its fair share of spooky moments as well. So without further ado, let's get into it. This is Anya's Ghost Explained. Anya walks into the kitchen in the morning to find her mother making serniki, a traditional Russian pancake-like dish. Sounds pretty good to me, but Anya thinks they're too greasy and would prefer something low-fat. There's a funny exchange where her mother says there's nothing wrong with being a little fat. Back in Russia, being fat meant you were a rich man. And Anya says, yeah, I don't think American boys really go for girls that look like rich men. She heads off to school, and when she arrives at the bus stop, she sees a cute guy waving her direction. She waves back until she realizes that he wasn't waving at her, he was waving at his girlfriend, a tall blonde. Anya's obviously embarrassed, and her friend Chauvin makes it worse by asking her why she's not walking with her boyfriend today. She's referring to a nerdy kid named Dima, who's also from Russia. Anya's clearly annoyed, and Chauvin asks if she could bum a cigarette from her. They get into a little tiff when Anya refuses, and Chauvin storms off. At the same time, Anya's crush and his girlfriend start making out, and the whole situation just pisses her off. Instead of taking the bus to school, she storms off into a nearby park, stewing on all the irritations of the day. Her mother's cooking, Ruben's pestering and the kissing couple. She's clearly distracted and accidentally walks into a large hole in the ground. It's surprisingly deep, and next thing she knows, she hits the bottom with a thud. She's alright for the most part, other than a sprained wrist, but it seems that she's fallen into a deep well. She lights a match to get a look around and finds a skeleton just a few feet from her. After a moment of shock, she starts screaming at the top of her lungs, but no one's around to hear her. Stressed out, she stops for a minute to have a smoke. As she puffs away, she suddenly sees something through the haze. A translucent girl sitting on the nearby bones. Anya asks if she's been down here the whole time, and the ghost says, in a manner of speaking, she has been down here the whole time, and quite a bit of other time as well. Well, that's a funny way to put it. Anya realizes she's speaking to a ghost and goes into a full panic, assuming there's some kind of gas down here causing her to hallucinate. The ghost says she doesn't think so. She was down here a long time before she died and didn't hallucinate anything. Anya just starts screaming again for help, to no avail. Finally, she asks the girl how long she's been down here. We learn that she fell down the well 90 years ago, but no one ever found her. She could hear them calling for her above, but couldn't reply because, as she puts it, she landed wrong. Looking at her skeleton, it's apparent that she broke her neck on the fall, and although she was conscious, she couldn't move or speak. Well, that's a disturbing way to go. Anya remembers she had food packed in her bag and hopes it'll be enough to last till she can escape. The girl asks her to stay a while. There hasn't been anyone but her for so long, and she would finally have someone to talk to. But Anya plans on getting the hell out of here as soon as someone walks through the area. She tries screaming out again, but nothing. After a while, she can see the night sky above, and it's gotten a little chilly. The ghost asks her about her clothes and whether everyone dresses that way now. Anya then gets an idea. Maybe the ghost could fly up out of the well and get someone's attention, but I guess her spirit can't go very far from her bones. Anya has another cigarette and seems to be losing hope. The next day, a punk comes waltzing through the area and throws a soda can down the well. The ghost notices this and wakes Anya up, telling her to yell. She cries out just in time to get the guy's attention before he gets too far away. He looks into the hole and Anya tells him to please go get some help and that she's hurt. The guy can't see her clearly and asks if she's a hot chick because she sounds kind of hot. Anya looks beyond annoyed and replies that she's incredibly hot. He can't even imagine. This puts some pep in his step and he runs off to get some help. Anya starts gathering her stuff, excited to finally get out of here. She looks over to see she's going and reminds her
mission status. I laminated your vocab cards and
she tells Anya she's going and reminds her that she's left-handed, so she'll be fine. Anya stomps up to her room, rudely ignoring her little brother along the way. She thumps her head into her pillow, and before she knows it, it's morning. She arrives at school in a bad mood already, and it's made worse when she realizes her first class is economics, which she finds boring as all hell. As she falls asleep in class, Chauvin peeks up through the window and convinces her to come have a smoke with her. She sneaks out the window, and they go to the women's room. Chauvin asks her awesome it was being trapped in the well, and Anya explains why it wasn't awesome at all, mainly because of the skeleton sitting next to her. Of course, Shobin thinks that's even cooler and suggests that maybe the well was haunted. Anya looks uncomfortable and dismisses the idea, remembering the very real ghost she encountered. Shobin has to head back to class, and Anya finishes her cigarette. She looks at herself in the mirror and hopes she doesn't end up looking like her mom when she's older. In the reflection, she notices something peeking up from behind the stall. It's none other than the ghost. After a bit of a scare, Anya asks her what we're all wondering. How did she leave the well? Well, if you remember, she has to be near her bones, and I guess Anya accidentally put one in her bag. She looks around and finds that, yep, she was carrying around the ghost pinky finger in her bag this whole time. The ghost girl's pretty hyped on finally getting out of the well, but Anya's not so pleased. She doesn't want a ghost following her around high school. Just then, the bell rings, and Anya remembers that she has a big biology test today, and she didn't bother studying for it because she was hoping she'd still be home. In a rush, she tells the ghost to hide in her bag and heads to class. After the test starts, the ghost floats out of Anya's bag, though she's really small, and at the side of her, Anya stands up and slaps her hand over her, which draws the attention of she saw to Anya. For the first time, Anya's actually glad to have a ghost in her bag, and with the Phantom's help, she finishes the test easily. The nerdy kid, Dima, announces to the teacher that he finished early and would help collect papers if she needed it. All the other kids look annoyed at him, and Anya says he's gonna get pounded later. It cuts ahead, and sure enough, Dima is getting bullied at lunch. The ghost girl points out that Dima and Anya are both Russian, so why isn't Anya backing him up? In her time, your people stuck together and defended each other. Anya tells her times have changed. If you act like a Bobby creep, you get creamed. She explains to the ghost that Bobby is short for fresh off the boat. All of a sudden, Chauvin runs into the lunchroom and informs Anya that it's bleep test day in gym. They usually try and skip the bleep test, but they were caught. The gym teacher reminds everyone how it works. They run back and forth across the gym in time to a sound or bleep. The bleeps get faster, and so you must run faster until you reach your physical limit. Anya thinks the gym teacher just likes watching them run around in skirts. She looks over at the apparently perfect Elizabeth, the blonde we saw earlier, jealous of how well she does in gym. Anya and another girl come up with a plan to pretend to fall halfway through the test, and as they plan, Elizabeth's boyfriend Sean, Anya's crush, comes into the gym to watch, making the whole situation much worse. The buzzer sounds and they all take off. Anya's friend sticks to the plan and falls to the ground, but probably because of Sean watching, Anya keeps on running. She actually does pretty well, outrunning some of the other girls, but she gets distracted looking at Sean and trips on her own 2 feet, falling face first into the floor. Even worse, her butt is sticking up in the air and everyone can see her underwear. Elizabeth stops to help her up, and Anya butt is sticking up in the air and everyone can see her underwear. Elizabeth stops to help her up, and Anya is mortified. Afterwards, she changes in the locker room, and the ghost girl asks her if there was something she could have done to help. Unfortunately, you can't cheat a gym. While they talk, Sean comes out from behind her and surprisingly starts up a friendly conversation. Assuming it was fake, he tells her that fall she took was bitchin'. They introduce themselves properly, although Anya is still embarrassed of her long-ass Russian surname and calls herself Anya Brown instead. Then Elizabeth shows up and her and Sean walk off together. On the bus home, a girl says, "Hey Anya, I heard about your nice moves in gym today." But Shobin backs up her friend and says, "Hey Katie, I heard about your nice moves in the boys' bathroom today." Nice. Lost in thought about her interaction with Sean, Anya passes the park on the way home, forgetting to bring the ghost bone back to the well. Back at home, Anya's mom is about to take the U.S. citizenship test and needs help being quizzed. It's a pretty fun scene that I can't do justice explaining, but her mother thinks Ben Franklin was a president. Later, upstairs, Anya's chilling out listening to music when the ghost girl comes out and asks her if it's okay if she stays a little longer, even offering to keep helping her at school. After a moment of thought, Anya agrees. She has finals coming up after all. The ghost gets super excited to see more of this future world.
For over 30 years, Beacon Mutual has proudly served as Rhode Island's leading provider of workers' compensation insurance. As we extend our protection beyond Rhode Island into Massachusetts and Connecticut, we will continue to empower businesses to succeed by protecting the safety, well-being, and security
of this future world. Shobin, who wonders who she's talking to. She pretends she was just on the phone and they walk home together after school. Anya's on the lookout for Sean and Shobin catches her acting weird, so Anya tells her about the crush. Shobin ribs her for a bit, saying he's the type of guy you're supposed to have a crush on in a bad teen movie. Back at home, Anya finds that her necklace was buried in the yard by her brother. She storms in the house cussing about it and her mother says don't swear in front of Jesus. Behind her on the wall we can see one of the classic Orthodox icons, although cartoonified. Up in her room, Anya's pissed off ranting about her annoying brother, and the ghost says back in her day, children who misbehaved got beaten by canes. Anya thanks her for all the help today, and the ghost asks her more about Sean, wondering if she loves him. She says not really, but he is cute. The ghost then says that she was in love once. She explains that she was going to get married, but he had to go to war and was killed in a German raid. Anya feels bad for being kind of a jerk to the ghost and realizes she doesn't even know her name. So we finally learn that her name is Emily Riley, which is nice because I don't have to keep calling her Ghost Girl. Anya asks her how she ended up in the well in the first place, and Emily tells her she was murdered. Her parents and her lived in a farmhouse not too far from the woods. They were generous, religious people who would offer a bed in the barn to anyone passing through the area. A man came in the spring who seemed like a good Christian, but one night Emily woke up and came downstairs to find that he had murdered her parents. She screamed and ran through the woods as the killer pursued her, but right before he caught her, she fell down the well, and she doesn't think he was ever caught. Anya says that might be the saddest thing she's ever heard, and offers to help solve her murder by finding out what happened to the guy. That way, she might be able to rest in peace. The next morning, Anya's brother wakes her up for church, but she ignores him. Next, her mother comes in and says everyone's worried about her. Obviously making up an excuse, she tells her mom that she just got her period, and whether she believes it or not, her mother leaves without her. Once they head out, Anya gets up excited and takes Emily on a walk. She asks Anya why she didn't want to go to church, and she says that she wouldn't mind it so much if it was a normal church, but Orthodox church is weird. Long, boring, and full of Russians, including Dima. She says that her mother wants her and Dima to be best friends. His mom convinced Anya's to send her to the same prep school so he'd have a friend. Kinda sad, actually. Well, Anya says it's not fair. She got bullied for years for talking funny, but she worked hard to lose her accent. School's hard enough without Dima hanging around her like a handicap. Emily tells her that as far as she's concerned, Anya seems to fit in pretty well overall. It is way more interesting than Elizabeth. Later, Emily looks through some modern teen magazines and is shocked at what the girls are wearing. Of course, Anya has to turn the pages for her since she can't physically touch things, and asks Emily what she's learned about the world so far. She says that there's a serious and ongoing crisis in the Middle East, and that her body type is a ruler. Yeah, she's definitely got a variety of source material. Then Anya shows her something she's been working on. She's made Emily's pinky bone into a necklace, so she doesn't have to shove her into a bag. The next day at school, Shobin can't figure out how Anya knew exactly the right way to sneak off and have a smoke, avoiding the headmaster. This is because Emily can keep a lookout. They spot Elizabeth looking perfect as always, and Anya talks about how much she hates her, mostly because she happens to be dating Anya's dream boy. Shobin doesn't understand what she sees in Sean and says that her brother told her he was kind of a dirtbag. Anya gets defensive and snippy with her and says that she wants encouragement from friends instead of them making her feel like crap. Shobin points out she's just trying to make sure she doesn't get hurt, but they blow up at each other and Anya storms off. As she walks away in a huff, she bumps into Sean. They start an awkward conversation. Meanwhile, Emily sneaks into his backpack and finds a flyer for a party. She tells Anya to mention it and pretend she knows the guy throwing it. Next, Emily
I got it. Who are like survivors like this? A lake of people and pets. Pets and pursuits.
She knows the guy throwing it. Next, Emily has Anya ask Sean for a ride. He agrees, saying him and Elizabeth will pick her up. After this, Anya tells Emily she's the best friend in the world. Later, after a daydream about Sean, Anya is freaking out about what to wear to the party. Emily picks an outfit for her, but it's a little skimpy for Anya's taste. Emily says, "You want Sean to notice you, don't you? So wear it." Man, she's getting really pushy. Sean and Elizabeth show up and she sneaks out to their car. They roll up to the party and Anya is quickly feeling a little out of place. Some random guy starts talking to her and then, like a creep, he tells her boobs look good in her shirt. After a while of sitting around by herself, she tracks down Elizabeth, who seems like she's standing guard outside of a door. Anya asks her where Sean is and she says that he's helping his friend Preston, who's had too much to drink. The only thing is, Preston was just downstairs. In fact, it's the same guy who made the lewd comment. Sean hears them talking and comes out from inside, telling Anya how much he likes her shirt. She asks him how Preston is and he looks confused. After some audible giggles coming from the room, it's clear that there's a girl in there, and it's someone else's girlfriend. Sean finally cuts the act and admits that he does have a girl in the room, and then this sleazebag asks Anya to join them. This is on top of the fact that his girlfriend Elizabeth is listening to all of this. Anya rejects him and he tells her, well, she knows where to find him, then goes back inside, asking Elizabeth for more of a heads up next time. After an awkward silence, Anya can't help but ask why she would go along with this, and Elizabeth says that they've been together for 3 years. She loves him. Sure, he gets bad at parties sometimes, but at the end of the day, she's his girlfriend. Jeez, not only was Shobin right about Sean, but apparently the perfect Elizabeth is all kinds of f***ed up. Anya leaves the party and starts walking home when Emily comes out and confronts her, asking her what the hell is wrong with her. She can't wrap her head around why Anya would leave when she was that close to Sean. Anya points out that Sean is a total creep, plus there was another girl in the room. Why would she stay? Emily looks pissed off, saying that Anya could have gotten rid of the girl. All of her hard work is now ruined. Anya wonders what exactly she wants from all this, and Emily says she just wants her to be happy. She's in love with Sean. She should be with him. She continues saying she knows what it's like to love someone and then lose them. Anya reminds her that Sean isn't dead in World War I. He's upstairs making out with a girl, and there's a big difference. It's getting late, and they just head home after this.
Hey guys, do you like Disney Plus or TV shows like Stranger Things? How would you like to be on one? Be one of the first 200 people to sign up now, and the next superstar could be you. Space is limited, so click below to apply now. This ad is sponsored by Casting Call Inc.
It's officially summer reading season. Warby Parker has the perfect glasses and sunglasses for all of your literary pursuits. Find the frames of your summer, starting at $95 with prescription lenses, in stores and at warbyparker.com.
Anya wakes up the next morning and finds that Emily's hair is different. It's less disheveled and looks neatly brushed. Emily starts immediately picking out an outfit for Anya to go see Sean in. Anya asks her why would she want to do that, and Emily gets frustrated, saying so he doesn't forget about you. She says again that Anya and Sean are in love and that they're going to be together forever. Right, it seems like Emily may be living vicariously through Anya, and it's gotten a little out of hand. She says that without her, Anya would still be that weird girl who fell on her ass at gym. Anya is understandably weirded out by Emily's behavior, but just changes the subject, suggesting that today they get to work on solving Emily's murder. However, Emily says she doesn't want to yet. She's finally making progress getting what they want. Anya takes a bus
The Grimsby and Gravenhurst supernatural
I'm making it
detective
for now.
Murder most
Ding, ding,
foul
ding,
at Gloom
first.
Gullet Hall. Lightning split the
Everything
sky
for one.
as Detectives Gravenhurst and Grimsby arrived at Gloom Gullet Hall, where Sir Percival Sneaklebottom
had been found impaled on an antique harpsichord during a seance. The suspects trembled before them. Baroness Petunia McSnort, always sneezing when nervous. Colonel Fiddlestick's Wobblecheek, suspiciously jittery, even for a retired mime. Madame Flapdoodle, medium by trade, large by volume. Professor Bumblesnuff, an expert in haunted furniture. Miss Tilly Twerpleton, fiancée of the deceased, known to throw teacups when jilted. It's clear, Gravenhurst declared, the harpsichord was possessed. No, Grimsby interrupted, lifting a splintered tuning fork. It was tuned to kill. Madame Flapdoodle gasped, accidentally summoning a minor poltergeist. Professor Bumblesnuff confessed. He called my haunted ottoman a footstool with delusions. I had no choice. Gravenhurst nodded solemnly. Case closed, Grimsby sighed. Another noteworthy crime. Ugh, the ghost played a B-flat in agreement. The Grimsby and Gravenhurst Supernatural Detective Agency. Murder most foul at Gloomgullet Hall. Lightning split the sky as detectives Gravenhurst and Grimsby arrived at Gloomgullet Hall, where Sir Percival Snoottlebottom had been found impaled on an antique harpsichord during a seance. The suspects trembled before them. Baroness Petunia McSnort, always sneezing when nervous. Colonel Fiddlestick's Wobblecheek, suspiciously jittery, even for a retired mime. Madame Flapdoodle, medium by trade, large by volume. Professor Bumblesnuff, an expert in haunted furniture. Miss Tilly Twerpleton, fiancée of the deceased, known to throw teacups when jilted. It's clear, Gravenhurst declared, the harpsichord was possessed. No, Grimsby interrupted, lifting a splintered tuning fork. It was tuned to kill. Madame Flapdoodle gasped, accidentally summoning a minor poltergeist. Professor Bumblesnuff confessed. He called my haunted ottoman a footstool with delusions. I had no choice. Gravenhurst nodded solemnly. Case closed, Grimsby sighed. Another noteworthy crime. Ugh, the ghost played a B-flat in agreement. The Grimsby and Gravenhurst Supernatural Detective Agency. Murder most foul at Gloomgullet Hall. Lightning split the sky as detectives Gravenhurst and Grimsby arrived at Gloomgullet Hall, where Sir Percival Snoottlebottom had been found impaled on an antique harpsichord during a seance. The suspects trembled before them. Baroness Petunia McSnort, always sneezing when nervous. Colonel Fiddlestick's Wobblecheek, suspiciously jittery, even for a retired mime. Madame Flapdoodle, medium by trade, large by volume. Professor Bumblesnuff, an expert in haunted furniture. Miss Tilly Twerpleton, fiancée of the deceased, known to throw teacups when jilted. It's clear, Gravenhurst declared, the harpsichord was possessed. No.
At school, Anya takes a bus downtown to the public library to try and find out what happened to Emily and her killer. She tells the librarian she's doing a report and is looking for info on the town around the First World War. The lady points out the periodicals and she finds dozens of shelves full of newspapers, making her wish she could just use Google for this. Turns out that Dima is nearby and offers to help her. I guess he's allowed to come here instead of gym class because the other kids kept breaking his glasses and he can't afford to keep fixing them. Well, that's sad. He asks Anya if she's tried microfilm and she has no idea what he's talking about. So Dima shows her how it works and the two get to searching. She tells Dima to look for anything about an Emily Riley and murders in the spring of 1918. While they look, Dima opens up to Anya, asking her how it's so easy for her to fit in, considering that he's constantly harassed. At first, Anya basically says, tough luck, you're a nerdy foreign kid, but she feels bad immediately and tries to relate to him, telling him about how she was bullied too when she first got here. Dima can't believe it because he thinks she's so cool. She tells him not to worry about the bullies anyway. Impressing a bunch of snooty teenagers is a lame goal. Look at that smile on Dima's face. It's a sweet moment, you have to admit. After a while, Dima does find something regarding Emily Riley, but it's not about her being murdered. It's about her being a murderer. Anya takes a look, and sure enough, she sees Emily's disturbed picture with the headline, Local Girl Missing After Double Murder. Next to it are two more photos of a young man and woman. As Anya reads more, we get a flashback showing what really happened to Emily. We can see her peering through a window at the man and woman who are clearly in love. With tears in her eyes, she blocks the door and throws a match into the nearby grass, lighting the house on fire and burning the couple alive inside. A mob forms and searches everywhere for her. After reading about all of this, Anya is in shock. Emily had lied about everything. She decides she's gonna have to go and heads back home in a huff. She enters her room and finds that the bone is missing. Emily appears smoking again and looking demented, and Anya asks her if she's seen the necklace. Emily says maybe you should have worn it, then you wouldn't have lost it. After a heated exchange, Anya almost confronts Emily about what she learned, but Emily cuts her off to show her a new trick. She reaches down and manages to pick up an earring on Anya's desk. It appears that with some effort, Emily can now move things. Anya realizes that Emily must have hidden the necklace, and Emily even implies that she put the bone in Anya's bag to begin with. Anya finally tells her what she learned, that she killed her unrequited love and his girlfriend. Emily defends herself, saying that he had called her ugly and broke her heart, and that Anya of all people should understand that. Well, Anya happens to think that murder is not an appropriate response to disappointment. Emily says yeah, she made some mistakes, but she wants to make it right by giving her the life that she always wanted. Anya's not interested in the life that Emily wanted, or her taste in men. She demands that Emily give her the bone back, but she refuses, saying she'll not go back into the dark. She says that she'll give Anya more time to think it over, and to realize that things are much better when she's on her side. Anya reminds herself that Emily can't go too far from the bone, so it must be somewhere in the house. After a while of searching, Anya goes downstairs and talks to her mother, who mentions that the school told her about Anya's big grade improvements, obviously a result of the cheating. As her mother cuts up some ingredients for dinner, Emily suddenly appears in the kitchen and cranks up the gas on the stove. Anya warns her mother, who's glad she noticed, saying she could have burned the whole house down. So now it seems Emily is straight up threatening to kill Anya's family.
Oh crap, I got the dice.
After this, Anya begins frantically searching for the bone around the kitchen. Dinner's almost ready, and Emily appears under the sink with her finger to her mouth. Anya then finds that a box of rat poison is laying empty. Realizing that Emily is attempting to poison her family, she rushes over and grabs the food, then pretends to slip and drop it all over the food. Mother had slipped on the stairs and has possibly broken her foot. Her little brother's marbles are all over the stairs. Anya quickly realizes this wasn't his doing, but Emily's. She offers to take her mom to the hospital, but remember, this is a tough lady from the old country. She says that she'll take a cab so Anya can stay here and watch her brother. It's nighttime at this point, and Anya is nervously smoking a cigarette, looking at a checklist of every possible room, and it looks like they've all been searched. She stops for a second and looks disgusted at the cigarette, putting it down. Maybe seeing Emily smoke made it a lot less cool. Just then, she hears her brother cry out from his room, and Anya runs in to find Emily floating over his bed and whispering terrible things in his ear. The poor kid has tears streaming down his face, so who knows what she's telling him. Not that an evil ghost floating above your head isn't enough reason for a little kid to cry. Anya yells at Emily to get off him, and she flies away. The poor kid's a mess, and Anya does her best to comfort him. While she does, she rants about how this is all her fault. She says she just needs to find that bone somewhere, and her little brother perks up, saying he actually found a bone in the hallway earlier, and he put it in his specimen box downstairs. They rush down to get it and find Emily trying her best to pick it up first. Anya just reaches through her hands and grabs it. She tells her brother to get back to his room and runs outside, going straight for the woods and the well. Emily chases behind her, saying she's going to kill her, but Anya stays a step ahead. As she approaches the tunnel by the woods, Emily rages out and increases her size until she's massive and her giant hands are inches from Anya. Finally, she finds the hole, and as she does, she turns on the spot and screams out at Emily, telling her to stop. She holds the bone in her hand right above the hole, threatening to drop it. Emily says she wasn't really going to kill her family, she just wanted Anya's attention. But Anya says she doesn't need Emily to make her life better, and in fact, she needs Anya. She wants her to dress up and chase boys because Emily never got to, but she refuses to live her life for her. At this point, Emily is a little less aggressive, and even asks Anya to maybe give the bone to one of her friends, like Chauvin. Anya says she wouldn't give Emily to her worst enemies. Emily then accuses Anya of being selfish, and says that if she really cared about Chauvin, how come she hasn't talked to her in weeks? And if she loved her family so much, why does she lie about her last name? She even suggests that Anya is no different than her and would do the same things if she had the chance. This sets Anya off, and she starts to move toward the hole again. Emily threatens her, saying she'll get another bone and make her way back up to Anya's house to get revenge. Anya doesn't buy it, and says it doesn't matter because she's going to tell someone and get the well filled in. This enrages Emily again, and she straight up charges at Anya, phasing through her stomach. It looks like an uncomfortable feeling, but it doesn't stop Anya, and she drops the bone into the well. Emily screams out trying to fight it, but is ultimately dragged back into the well. There's a moment of quiet as Anya looks down into the dark well. She begins to walk away when something grabs her ankle. Looking down, she sees Emily has possessed her own skeleton and it's climbing out of the well. Anya kicks her foot loose and moves back, but Emily stands up looking pretty freaky as the bones glow. Anya starts to run away but stops. She confronts Emily, confessing that she may not be exactly like her, but she's enough like her to understand how she feels, envious of others and wondering how they have it so easy. But Emily needs to learn that you never really know what's going on in someone else's head. How does she know the girl she killed wasn't even more messed up than her, or the boy for that matter? No one has the right to decide who lives or dies. It's pretty clear that Emily can barely even stand in this form. It seems like Anya's words hit home, and she looks up with tears in her eyes. Then she lets out a long sigh and falls backward, sending her skeleton into the well. We then get a time jump to the well being filled in by the school's public safety group. The guy in charge approaches Anya and has a hard time pronouncing her last name. This time she proudly says it, and he thanks her for telling them about the hole. She says she didn't want anyone else to go through what she did, and the man likes her attitude, even suggesting to see her in the student election coming up. Afterwards, she has a seat on a log in the woods, and Shobin finds her. Anya apologizes for not talking to her, and she says it's no big deal. She offers Anya a smoke, but she refuses, saying she doesn't know if she ever really liked them, and it doesn't look as cool as she thought it did. Shobin tells Anya that she may look normal on the outside, but she's not on the inside. Anya takes it as a compliment, and we get a beautiful zoom out as the comic comes to an end. So there you have it, Anya's Ghost. There's a lot of interesting things you can take from this comic, but the thing that stood out to me the most is a lesson in judgment. You really don't know what's going on in someone else's life. Anya thought that Elizabeth was perfect and found out she was miserable and in a really jacked up relationship. On the other hand, Anya thought her life sucked and saw herself as horribly flawed, but from Dima's perspective, she was the cool one who had it easy. You just never know what's going on in someone's head. I highly recommend you all go buy a copy of Anya's Ghost at your local bookstore. One of the things that's completely lost in an overview video like this is the humor. This comic is genuinely funny, but what did you guys think? Let me know in the comments below, as well as anything else you'd like me to do a deep dive on. Shout out to Kill Me Katie, as always, for the intro and outro music, which is likely playing right now. And if you want to see your art at the end of my videos, email me a submission to the address below with a name or social media handle. But I appreciate you guys watching at all. This is Grief speaking. Goodbye, friends.
Acknowledging everything is fine, but how would I like to?
Join ICE with bonuses up to $50,000 and generous benefits. Join.ice.gov.
Sam and Maggie are the ideal couple living in an ideal society. Sam brings home the bacon, and Maggie keeps the house nice and tidy along with her other wifely duties. And don't forget their furry companion Winston, who just seems so sleepy these days. Everything is fine, and look at those giant cat masks, adorable. Everyone's pleasant here, and safety is guaranteed with a camera at every corner. Be sure to put poison in your garbage before taking it to the curb to deter any pests. And if you see any suspicious activity with your neighbors, be sure to report it to the authorities immediately. Everything is fine. You may have a few questions like, why are their eyes glowing red? Why is there a distinct absence of children? And what the hell is going on in the neighbor's basement? Well, I suggest you forget all about it. Remember, everything is just fine. Hello friends, this is Grief speaking, and today we're going to be doing a deep dive on the webcomic Everything is Fine by Mike Burchell. I've seen this one suggested in the past, but was worried it would be a massive undertaking, since there are 3 parts, and each part has 30 episodes. On top of that, the comic is not complete as far as I can tell, and I wanted to do the whole thing. So I stupidly shelved it before I even gave it a chance. However, recently I made a post asking what you wanted me to cover, and Everything is Fine was the top suggested comic by by quite a bit. Well, I have to thank you guys because I couldn't put it down, and honestly, it's become one of my favorite comics I've covered so far. I decided the best way to tackle this would be to do it in parts in the same way that the comic is divided up. Today, I'll be covering part 1, and if you guys really want me to, I'll do part 2 and 3 as well. So if you enjoyed this video, like and comment to let me know you want more from the series. A couple of notes about this comic before we get into it. This series can be very cryptic. It doesn't spell things out directly and leaves a lot of room for mystery. But when secrets and world-building lore are revealed, it is all the more satisfying. Honestly, I think the author uses what we don't know masterfully to keep the suspense high. So if you're a little confused at times, don't worry, there's some great payoff along the way. Secondly, this is the first comic I've covered from Webtoons, which has a unique format. The parts are called seasons and the chapters are called episodes, so that's why I'll use that language as we move through. Anyway, this intro is way too long, so let's get into the comic. This is Everything is Fine Explained, Part 1. So let's get into part 1 titled The New Forever. It begins with a man named Sam waking up on a beautiful day. He makes his way downstairs and finds his wife Maggie making some bacon, although it looks like she was daydreaming and burnt it to a crisp. Sam tells her he loves her and talks about how sweet she is. It's here we see Sam and Maggie's faces for the first time. Oddly enough, they seem to be covered in large cat masks. You know I love a good mask, but this just feels off. They have a lighthearted, stereotypical conversation about Sam's work. He's complaining about the grind, but says, I guess I have to play the game if I'm gonna get this promotion. Maggie questions this mentality, wondering if playing the game is really the best way. She says, you can play roulette all you want, but at the end of the day, who owns the casino? Obviously, she's hinting at something bigger than Sam's work, and after a brief pause, he simply answers in that 80s sitcom style, Hun, you know I'm no gambler, you silly Billy. He leaves for work and stops just short of the door and looks back at his wife, telling her the cryptic words, we need to forget. She tries to say more, but he harshly shuts her down and heads out. This initial conversation may be confusing, but trust me, this comic is well worth the subtle unraveling of its mysteries. Maggie decides it's time to feed their dog Winston. However, his food bowl is completely full. Either way, she dumps it out and refills it. She calls him to come eat, and we don't get a good look at him. He seems to be sleeping in his dog bed in the other room, unmoved by her voice. Maggie sits down to have a cup of coffee, and after looking at it, she sees what looks like a face appear, then immediately throws the cup on the ground, saying, whoops, as if this was an accident. Once again, she calls Winston to come lick it up, and he refuses to move. Actually, seeing a little more of his body, are those flies around him? She continues to call his name, and we finally get a good look at the poor pup and find he's dead, his corpse rotting and face eaten by maggots. And that's how the first episode ends. It's a stellar opening to the series in my opinion. Something is horribly wrong, but we don't know what. Only that it seems like this couple is forced to pretend that everything is fine. So let's move into episode 2, Swings and Roundabouts. Maggie sits at a park in the rain, staring at some empty playground equipment. Nearby, another woman sits doing the same, and they exchange a glance. Then she gets a call from Sam, and it seems like he doesn't want her spending time there. Later, Maggie does some shopping. The store is in pristine order, with every aisle perfectly stocked and security cameras at every turn. Maggie reaches for a can of tuna, the only one that happens to have Japanese characters instead of English, something she spots as unusual. As she looks at it, a man approaches her from behind, scaring the crap out of her. Turns out to just be her neighbor from across the street, Charlie. He asks about the tuna can after getting a look at the unusual label, but Maggie redirects the conversation, not drawing any attention to it. She asks him if he's been doing okay since she hasn't seen him around lately. He just says goodbye and leaves abruptly. As he leaves, Maggie notices that his cart has a large amount of aluminum foil in it.
Go get these right now. Top tier.
Remarkable allows me to focus on the things that really matter.
Foil in it. Weird. Back at home, Maggie unpacks the groceries when she's greeted by her next door neighbors, Linda and and Bob. They engage in typical small talk that feels completely generic and void of anything real. Then Bob invites Maggie and Sam over for dinner tonight. Just then, Charlie pulls up and starts walking into his house. Bob shouts over to invite him to the party as well, and he's clearly uninterested. He says he can't. He's busy working on his model train set in the basement. And Bob asks, are your trains really as important as neighborly bonding, or is there something else you're doing in that basement? It sounds eerily like a threat, and Charlie hesitates to answer. Then his left eye glows red. Maggie, Linda, and Bob's eyes glow red as well, and shortly after, Charlie agrees to join them for dinner. Well, that was spooky. What the hell just happened there? The overly joyful conversation continues like the strange exchange never happened, and Maggie looks up at the nearby lampposts, each of which has several security cameras mounted on them. It looks like every square inch of this neighborhood is under surveillance. Episode 3, Mom Spaghetti, opens with Maggie cooking a red sauce on the stove. Like with her coffee, she sees a face in the sauce, which pops and splatters onto her cheek, looking a little like blood. Sam arrives home, snapping her out of a daze, and the two enter into a conversation fitting for a couple in a 1960s sitcom. Sam looks around for Winston and clearly stumbles upon his dead corpse. He enters the kitchen, however, only saying that Winston seems off and hasn't touched his food. He asks Maggie to take him to the vet tomorrow, and the two sit staring at each other for a few seconds before she finally agrees to do so. This comic really does earn its title. There's a dead dog rotting in the living room, but everything's fine, right? Before dinner, Maggie asks Sam to take the trash out, but before he does, he dumps rat poison in the bag. I guess they have a rodent problem. When he approaches the garbage can outside, he hears a rustling noise, and from behind the can, something peeks out and groans. The entity reveals itself to be another person asking for help. He's got a cat mask on as well, but it's all torn up with chunks missing, and we can see a human mouth underneath. The dirty man begs for food and asks if there are some scraps in the garbage that haven't been poisoned. Kinda seems like this is the reason Sam put poison inside in the first place. Sam just says nothing and drops the bag before going back in. Inside, he pretends the whole thing never happened and starts up another boring conversation about work. Then suddenly, the creepy man outside appears by the window. It actually works as an effective jump scare because of how this comic is formatted, which is hard to pull off in this medium. He starts talking through the window, saying that the trash smelled like poison, and asks if he can have some of their spaghetti. He says he hasn't eaten in days and will probably die soon. Sam and Maggie just stare at each other silently. Then their eyes glow red. Sam says he believes Winston wants to go outside for a bit. He walks over to the dog's body and picks it up. He carries it outside and drops it on the sidewalk, saying, "I love you, boy." The man outside seems excited about a dog, and especially that it's not poisoned. He thanks Sam as he heads back inside. They sit at the table in silence as the sounds of their dog's body being eaten passes through the window. Needless to say, they don't finish their meal. Episode 4, Mise en Place. Bob is getting everything ready for his dinner party tonight. He sings a lighthearted song that seems somewhat ominous given this setting. The table is set and it all looks perfect. Next door, Maggie is holding Winston's collar at the foot of the bed. She's in her underwear and she has a tattoo on her thigh. Normally, this wouldn't be worth noting, but it stands out since, so far, everyone has looked like they're right out of an Old Navy catalog. It's striking to see someone's human body. Sam walks into the room dressed up for dinner and suggests that Maggie put the dress he left out that matches his blue tie. She points to it and, to Sam's surprise, it's all cut up. She calls it old-fashioned and had her own dress in mind. Sam is at a loss for words at the sight of his wife in such a striking red dress, but eventually tries to talk her out of it, thinking it may be a bit over the top for dinner. Maggie is dead set, however, and has Sam zip her up. There's kind of a heated moment where Maggie says, "It's been a while, huh, Sam?" And he feels her back a bit, I guess suggesting that they haven't knocked boots in a while. However, it's hard to tell if this is of their own will or if this society that they're a part of doesn't allow it. Eventually, Sam says that the dress doesn't match his tie, and Maggie shoots him a cold-ass look, saying, "Then get a new tie," before walking out of the room. Bob and Linda talk before the guests arrive, and Bob admires the sunset. He does mention that the smell is getting through, though. Maybe it's nothing, but I think that's actually another little clue. I mean, what kind of smell is he talking about? Anyway, Linda asks if they are good to go through with the plan tonight, and he confirms. Across the street, Bob spots Charlie emptying several boxes of aluminum foil in his garbage. Okay, there's the aluminum foil again. Episode 5, Had to Be There. Sam and Maggie arrive at Bob and Linda's house for dinner, and as a joke, Sam says that traffic was brutal, even though they obviously just walked here. Bob doesn't get the joke, and they awkwardly walk inside. Then Bob comments on how stunning Maggie looks, and makes a bad joke about wife swapping. He then makes a passive-aggressive comment about how it gets chilly in their house, and that Maggie might want to cover up. It's clear that he's hinting at the fact that Maggie's cleavage is exposed. She bluntly declines despite Bob's insistence, and when when Linda asks about Winston, she straight up says he was eaten. Yeah, it looks like Maggie is sick of the superficial nature of this society. In a panic, Sam tries to save face, but then Linda says she knows exactly what Maggie means. After an uncomfortable pause, she says, Winston is just so cute you had to gobble him up, followed by a bunch of fake laughter. She asks if she can get them a beverage, and Maggie immediately says vodka, which just made me laugh, but Sam quickly chimes in and asks for 2 waters instead. Linda leaves the room along with Bob to help her, and Sam uses the opportunity to talk to Maggie. He says he understands that everything with Winston was tough, but they just need to keep going for her, and she agrees. Okay, so it seems that this whole Pleasantville charade is an act they're forced to put on for some reason, but who is the her they're talking about? Well, we'll get to that later. So the two couples sit and banter about their lives. Bob mentions going to a hardware store, but can't remember exactly which one. It's actually a bit of world building here, because it implies that there are multiple hardware stores in different sectors of the city that are all basically the same and are just called hardware stores. They also mention several other businesses with generic names as well, including what they call the Art Factory, which indicates that art is just manufactured and mass-produced. Anyway, there's a knock at the door and Charlie has arrived. Bob ribs him about not dressing up and they all sit down. Linda asks if anyone wants anything and Sam replies, just water for me, I have to drive home after all, continuing his bad joke from earlier. Linda and Bob laugh like it's the funniest thing they've ever heard, to the point where it's kind of eerie, but Charlie and Maggie stay silent and exchange a glance.
Hi, everybody. I'm happy to welcome you to the Oprah podcast. We're in New York with a live audience of our listeners. So great to be with you all here. And we know the world is changing at the speed of light. Every day, we're grappling with a new disruption or cultural shift we've never faced before. So one of my intentions is to have meaningful conversations about the impact all this has on our real lives. Lots of people say, oh, I'm addicted to my phone. How many of you ever said that? I'm addicted to my...
Silent and exchange a glance. Episode 6. Friends for dinner. At dinner, the group discusses their occupations. Charlie's job is to move boxes to point 4, and Sam's department does paperwork for points 7 through 10. It gives us a more vague idea of the strange structure of the city. They ask Bob what he does, and he says that he works at the box incinerator. The entire table goes quiet, and they all glance at each other. Okay, now I really want to know what's in the boxes. Linda brings the food out, and before they eat, Bob thinks that one of the guests should give a spontaneous declaration and volunteers Maggie. She gives a bizarre speech saying, my name is Maggie of neighborhood 147D. Before this delicious meal, I feel spontaneously compelled to offer my thanks. I'm thankful for my husband's diligent work that provides for us and the fulfillment I find in my own household duties. I'm thankful for the government that keeps us healthy, protects us, and feeds us. I'm happier than I've ever been. Then everyone at the table says, we are the happiest we've ever been, in unison. Yeah, this has real North Korea vibes. The fact that they all knew what to say at the same time at the end makes it seem like this was not such a spontaneous declaration, but rather a rehearsed one. There's an interesting detail shown when they start to eat. The cat mouth on the masks opens up like an automatic door, and you can see the real human mouth inside. Pretty creepy. Linda then mentions a place called Lakeview, a little town up north that's supposed to be wonderful. It's right by a big lake surrounded by nature. Bob says they've been thinking of moving there. They talk about how only good folk get to go that are honest, friendly, and loyal. Bob says we all know how to show we're loyal, right? There's a tense moment, and he continues. He mentions Barbara, who lives down the street, and how he caught her digging through their trash can the other day. Linda says they don't have anything to hide, but if Barbara were to call the police, and it's her word against theirs, they would appreciate their neighbors backing them up. And of course Bob and Linda would do the same for them. With all of them looking out for each other, it's more likely they can all go to Lakeview eventually. Bob and Linda finish by eerily asking the other three if they would join them. Episode 7, Peep Show. Charlie and Maggie exchange a look at each other, and then Sam pipes up saying that he and Maggie think it's a swell idea and that they're stronger as a group. Charlie reluctantly agrees as well, and Maggie excuses herself to the bathroom. She looks in the mirror and is hit with a red image of the swing set at the park. As as well as the Winston scenario and the face she saw in the red sauce. In this image, the face begins to speak, saying, "We need to forget," and then she sees an eye pop up in the sauce, a human eye. After only seeing cat heads, the realistic eyeball is quite frightening. She snaps out of this vision with a knock on the bathroom door. It turns out it's Charlie, and he asks her a bizarre question. "Do you like trains?" Apparently she once mentioned to him that she used to help her father with his model trains when she was younger. He then asks her if she wants to see his train set, specifically his new model, a Flying Scotsman. Maggie says her and Sam would love to see it sometime. This seems to throw Charlie off, and he asks if he could talk to her in the bathroom for a moment. Once they're inside, he locks the door, and he asks if only she could come without Sam. He works nights, so she could come by in the day. She hesitates, but actually agrees. I'm not sure what's going on here, but it kind of seems like she's about to play with this dude's Flying Scotsman while her husband's at work, if you know what I mean. Behind them is a strange piece of art hanging on the wall with a small hole in it. On the other side, Linda is looking through, spying on them. Everyone heads out, and while saying goodbye, Bob mentions Lakeview again, hoping to see Sam and Maggie there. Linda ominously states that she thinks they'll all be there real soon. Episode 8, Echo Julia. The next day, Sam heads to work, and shortly after, Maggie heads over to Charlie's house. Inside, Charlie has no furniture, only a cardboard box with a TV on it and a foldable chair. It's pretty depressing, actually. Charlie quickly ushers Maggie toward the basement, but stops short of opening the door. He says that the basement, his trains, it's all a bit much. After she sees it, she may want to run away, but he asks her to trust him and let him explain once they're down there. She agrees, but as he opens the basement, his doorbell goes off. He reluctantly opens the front door and finds a police officer outside. It's kind of cute. He's got a mustache on his cat mask. The officer's very polite and asks if he can come inside. Charlie starts to decline, but then his left eye glows red and he says, "Of course, officer, come right in." The officer's name is Tom, and he continues the polite conversation inside with Maggie. Tom asks if there's anyone else inside the house and says he needs to have a little chat with Charlie. Charlie agrees, but says that Maggie was just leaving. However, Officer Tom tells her to stay. He asks Charlie a very important question he wants the answer to. What's in the basement? Episode 9, An Iron Voice. Charlie tells him he just keeps his model trains in the basement, and Tom asks to have a look. Charlie says that Maggie had nothing to do with this and asks if she can leave. The officer says she needs to stay because he wants her to see this, but if Charlie does anything crazy, it'll affect her too. Maggie tries to say that Charlie is a good man, and Tom cuts her off like a dick, saying, "I'm sorry, ma'am, did I ask you to speak?" Alright, I hate this guy. Tom goes to take a look in the basement, and Charlie apologizes for getting her involved. He says when this is over, forget all of it. Don't be like me. Tom reemerges from the basement and asks Maggie if she knows what's down there. She replies honestly that she has no idea, and Tom says, "Good, let's keep it that way." Charlie begins to beg the officer not to do this, but Tom says this is just the way things are. He then declares, "Charlie Harris of Residence 398 in Neighborhood 147D, the state finds you guilty of conspiracy to undermine the optimal functions of society." Maggie is shocked and tries to defend Charlie once more, but Tom shuts her down again, giving her a final warning, or else she'll be found guilty as well. He continues with Charlie, saying, effective immediately, he's designated red status. He must vacate his home and may not speak to or interact with any other citizens. Charlie tries to convince Tom not to follow through with this and begs him to stop, saying they can just act it out instead. Then he says, "Her name is Charlotte, Tom." Whatever that means. Tom tells him there's just no going back. He pulls out his phone, which has a profile on Charlie, with all of his information down to his weight and height. He hits a button to change Charlie's status to red, and immediately Charlie's eyes glow. He screams in terror, as if experiencing something truly horrific, clawing into his face in the process. As he cowers on the ground, Officer Tom tells Maggie that now she can leave. Episode 10, Forget Me Not. Sam's alarm goes off, and he wakes up bright and early to get ready for work. However, he'll be making his own breakfast since it looks like Maggie is sleeping in, and I guess this has been the case for the last 2 weeks. She eventually gets up and goes about her morning, bathing and brushing her teeth. She puts her toothbrush up and then suddenly sees a third red toothbrush in the holder. She tells herself to forget, and the brush vanishes. In the mirror, she sees a replay of Charlie begging Officer Tom not to do it. He once again says her name is Charlotte, but this fades away and Maggie tells herself to forget once again. She sees Winston's food bowl and another face in her coffee, but repeats the word forget, causing them to fade. tape. This continues throughout her day as she sees various images that shift back to normal, like the tuna can with the Japanese characters, and a painting in her house that had 3 flowers changing to show only 2. She continues to repeat the phrase as the pages turn red, and she laughs maniacally like she's losing her damn mind. Episode 11, Carrot and Stick. Outside, Maggie runs into Linda, who's packing some boxes into a car. Turns out her and Bob are moving to Lakeview after all. Maggie asks her how they got in, and Linda replies that she must just be lucky. Maggie doesn't let her off easy though, and asks if it had anything to do with Charlie. After a tense pause, Linda says she doesn't know anyone by that name. Maggie just pretends she misspoke and heads over to the park where she watches the empty playground once again, repeating the word forget. Officer Tom shows up and asks her how she's doing today, like nothing happened. Maggie is visibly trying to hold in her anger. After a few seconds of silence, Tom reminds her that an officer just asked her a question. Her eyes glow red, and she finally responds saying, "I'm doing wonderful, Tom. How about you?" He sits down next to her, and they have a pleasant and superficial conversation. Finally, he straight up asks her if she's heard from Charlie, and we see her dig her nails into the park bench. She tells him she has no idea who he's talking about, and Tom laughs it off like it was a mistake. He says, "I'll be seeing ya," and walks away. Yep, it looks like he's got his eye on Maggie now. Episode 12, Crocodile Teeth. Back at home, Maggie stares into her mirror and sees Charlie, who tells her to forget all of it. She spots the red toothbrush again and then sees Sam in the mirror saying, "We need to forget." She screams that she's trying, and when she looks at the toothbrush holder, it's now full of only the red brush. She looks over and sees Charlie on the bathroom floor ripping his own eyes out, saying, "Why, Maggie, why?" This vision spirals out of control as a giant Officer Tom grabs her like a doll. But she snaps back into reality by smashing the mirror and cutting up her hand pretty bad in the process. In tears, she grabs a shard of glass and holds it to her own neck. It seems like maybe she's giving up on life. Then, for a brief moment, she sees what looks like a child brushing their teeth in the shattered glass, although we can't see their head. The kid, a little girl I think, is singing a cute song about brushing her crocodile teeth, and then presumably Maggie enters the bathroom and has a funny conversation with her. It's a funny family moment that confirms something you probably guessed by now. Sam and Maggie had a child, and likely many of the other adults around, but there have been no children in sight. When Sam told Maggie they have to keep going for her, they were likely talking about their daughter. Maggie looks over and sees Charlie once more. Although he has no facial features, only the blank cat mask, it's clear he's in her head. Maggie tells him she doesn't want to forget anymore, and Charlie tells her it's time then, isn't it? She asks, time for what? But he implies she already knows. He leads her outside and over to his house, which is covered in police tape. Inside, he tells her that once she goes down into the basement, there's no going back. Episode 13, Science 101. Maggie asks Charlie what's down there, and he tells her that she already suspects it, but that this will only confirm her beliefs. So she enters the dark basement and flips on the light. We finally get a look at whatever it was that Charlie was hiding down here. It turns out to be nothing. At least it looks that way. It's a pretty normal basement with a washer and dryer as well as storage shelves. After looking around, Maggie finds a box labeled trains and takes a look inside, but still doesn't find anything unusual. She looks around the basement once more and finally spots something behind the dryer. A small piece of foil left on the wall. Maggie says that this can't be all that's down here. Then she finds a box for the Flying Scotsman, the train Charlie wanted to show her. Inside, there's a drawing by a child named Charlotte that shows the girl and her father and what appears to be her mother up in heaven. This must be the girl Charlie mentioned and likely his daughter. It also implies that his wife died at some point and that's why he lives alone. She also finds a textbook labeled Science 101 with a dog-eared page. The page is about a Faraday cage, an enclosure used to block electromagnetic fields from entering and affecting the contents. It goes on to explain that you can make a Faraday cage simply using aluminum foil. Across the page in bold red letters, Charlie has written the words, "It works." Works. Episode 14. supply chain. Later, Maggie is shopping at the store looking for some foil. It seems that the shelf it should be on is completely empty. She asks an employee if they have any more in the back, and the guy acts really weird about it, flatly telling her that they don't, and he refuses to even look. She walks back to her car and is greeted by a stranger in the parking lot who introduces herself as Judy. She notices Maggie was looking for foil and assumes it was for a turkey. Maggie goes along with this, and it becomes clear that Judy knows this isn't for a turkey, and using cryptic language, she inquires how much foil Maggie really needs, and eventually tells her she can have some of hers. Judy opens her trunk to reveal a ton of aluminum foil. She says Maggie can have all of it for free, and maybe down the line she could do Judy a favor. They transfer the foil to Maggie's car, and Judy tells her to be careful roasting her turkey. It needs to be completely sealed and may need doubling up. She also tells her that cooking the bird is only part of the job. You have to be prepared to carve it up. Episode 15, Try It at Home. Maggie arrives home with all the foil, and Sam asks her why she needs so much. She tells him it's a housewife secret. She asks him to help her bring it into the basement, and he seems a little suspicious, but goes along with it anyway. Next door, Linda is watching through the window and tells her husband that it seems Maggie has picked up a new hobby, model trains, and says she's going to make a call. Bob asks if she's sure, since they're already going to Lakeview after all, but Linda insists. 1 week later, Sam is putting up a painting with a hammer and nails. He spots Maggie coming out of the basement and questions why she spent so much time down there lately. She says that she's doing laundry, just part of her wifely duties. He attempts to go down into the basement to look for his lucky socks, and she quickly stops him. This leads to a heated back and forth until suddenly the doorbell rings. Sam answers it and finds none other than Officer Tom at his door. Episode 16, Animals Are Free. You know this chapter is going to get wild because there's a warning at the top for disturbing content and imagery. Tom asks to come inside, and Sam kindly obliges. Maggie and Tom exchange cold pleasantries, then he asks if he can check the basement. Sam says of course and offers him the grand tour, if it's okay with Maggie. She says of course, go right ahead. So Sam and Tom open the basement door. They pass by the hammer and nails that are still sitting nearby, and Sam asks if there's any particular reason he needs to take a look down here. Tom says he's just curious, and as they make their way down the stairs, we can see Maggie into the doorway behind them. Even more unsettling, we see that the hammer is missing. Sam fumbles for the light switch and finally turns it on, revealing that the basement has been covered top to bottom in foil, making it a large Faraday cage. This explains what Maggie was doing down here all week. Sam is confused, legitimately not knowing what's going on. Up the stairs, the basement door slams shut, and Maggie stands at the top looking down at them and clutching the hammer. Tom tells her she needs to think very carefully, but before he can even finish the sentence, Maggie slams the hammer into the side of his head. Truly one of the most shocking moments in this entire comic. Blood, along with a strange green liquid, cover the hammer and splatter the walls as it sprays out of the side of Tom's head. His body lay in shock on the floor, mumbling when Maggie addresses him. She says, I want you to know, Tom, even through that mask I saw it on your face. We're all in the same boat here, but that doesn't mean we have to enjoy it like you do. Tom stutters that they really are the same. He says their names are Peter and Davy, likely the names of his own children. Maggie raises the hammer coldly and says their names were Charlotte and Charlie. Tom tries to beg her to stop, saying they can go back, but she says, I'm sorry, Tom, there is no going back. The following pages are in red as Maggie brutally smashes Tom's head in with the hammer over and over. Sam stands in horror as she commits the act, blood splashing onto his face. Maggie kneels over Tom's body with green goo and blood covering most of her face, and simply says to her husband, we need to talk. On the ground, we see Tom's mutilated head, his brains exposed. My God, what a chapter. Episode 17, Since Last Accident. Sam is in a complete daze, seeing his wife clean the blood off of herself in a blur. She reaches into Tom's pocket and pulls out his phone. It's locked by fingerprint, but no problem. She pulls Tom's lifeless thumb onto the screen to unlock it. Sam is still watching in shock while Maggie opens an app and shows a map of the neighborhood and little colored cat heads tracking everyone's whereabouts. She clicks on Sam's icon and gets a detailed readout on him. At the bottom it says last ping 3 minutes ago, next ping 7 minutes. Seeing this puts Maggie in a panic. She looks up at Sam and tells him that it's okay to talk, that's what the foil's for. He stays silent and she tries to help clean him off until he finally tells her not to touch him and smacks her hand away. He asks her if she has any idea what she's done, and that now they've lost everything. She tries to assure him that it's okay. She'll explain everything, but first she needs his help. They're being tracked, and in 6 minutes the GPS will update, and if they're still down here when it does, they'll know something's wrong. Charlie is barely listening and still in a full-blown panic, calling her crazy. She asks him if he's still in there, if he still loves her. After a long pause, he says, of course he does. Then she recounts when Sam proposed to her, how he had the whole thing planned outside and told her he couldn't tell her why, and it sounds like the worst idea in the world, but you have to take my hand and come outside. You just have to trust me. Maggie is now asking him the same thing, to trust her. In a couple of minutes, the GPS will update and they'll see Tom is missing. But if he can help her stop that, they may find a way forward, and maybe they can save her. Sam finally agrees to trust her, and they realize their first order of business is to move Tom's body. Episode 18, Funny How. Sam and Maggie move Tom's body upstairs, and Maggie reminds him not to speak until they get back into the basement. Getting a better look at Tom's busted up body in the light, Sam can't help but throw up. The GPS pings and they head back downstairs. Once in the basement, Maggie tells him it's okay to speak. You can even curse if you want, although she finds it really fudging difficult to do so. She chuckles, and this just sets Sam off. He talks about how hard he's worked to keep this all together and how she's ruined any chance they had of getting her back. Maggie doesn't believe there's really a chance that would ever happen, even if they played along with this sick game. Sam asks her what the point of all of this was, and Maggie says that whoever is running this whole thing can't be trusted, and after she found out about the foil, they could talk and come up with a plan, or at the very least, she could hear his real voice. She's lost track of the last time they've had a real conversation, but thinks it must have been 3 or 4 years ago. Maggie sets a timer for the next ping, and Sam collapses to the ground in exhaustion, saying he just wants all of this to be over, and that he misses her so much. Maggie sits down to him for a few moments, and finally Sam breaks the silence, saying, it's been 3 years, 1 month, and 15 days since they last truly spoke. I guess he'd been counting. He also tells her, he's all ears. What's the plan? Maggie says he's not gonna like it, but to hear her out. We then cut to a knock on the door. The neighbor Bob opens it up to find what appears to be Officer Tom standing at his door. Episode 19, Protect and Serve. So I'll just tell you right now, this episode will seem very confusing, but just hold on till the following chapter because it ends up being one of my favorites. So it seems Maggie's plan involved Sam impersonating Officer Tom. He asks to come in and have a look around, and Bob seems suspicious but lets him in. He offers him a glass of water since it seems like the officer has a frog in his throat, likely due to Sam changing his voice. He says he needs to look down and back. Bob is still a little confused, as are we, but assumes he means the basement and kitchen. Sam asks if he can have any whiskey, and Bob politely offers him wine instead. As he prepares some, Sam inspects the kitchen sink, and we hear a small clicking noise. When Bob comes back with the wine, Sam just ignores it and heads towards the basement. Bob offers to give him a tour, but Sam shouts, no, stay back, only me. He goes downstairs, slamming the door behind him, and makes quite a ruckus downstairs before coming back up. Then he just walks out the back door, not saying a word to Bob. Before Bob can think about what the hell just happened, there's a knock at the front door. It's Maggie, and she's in a tizzy. She tells him that Winston has gone missing and asks if he's seen him. Bob assures her it's probably fine and offers to go help her look. Just then, a loud thud sounds nearby. Bob thinks maybe it was Winston, and Maggie says she'll go look, now refusing Bob's help. Bob can tell something is up, and when he gets back inside, calls the authorities. He starts to report what happened when interrupted by whoever's on the line. He simply says, oh, I see, as his eye glows red and he hangs up the phone. Like I said, this is a very confusing chapter, but it pays off in the next segment. Episode 20, Working the Angles. Across the street, Maggie rushes into the basement where she finds Sam. He apologizes for making the loud noise when he jumped the fence. Either way, it seems like they pulled it off. It then cuts back to before the last episode. Maggie is convincing Sam to go through with her plan, saying that Bob and Linda were never really their friends and that they tried to do the same to them. She runs through the plan one more time, and it sheds light on what was going on in episode 19. Linda's out shopping, so Bob will greet Sam at the door and will have to let him in even if he's suspicious. Then Sam will unlock the kitchen window when Bob's not looking, which explains the clicking noise. Next, they have the GPS from Tom's head and his phone. It's actually some interesting lore here showing how they're tracked. Implants. Sam gets into Bob's basement and smashes Tom's phone and then hides the tracker and hammer somewhere. Then he leaves through the back door to avoid the street cameras. Bob will be watching, but Maggie will distract him, giving Sam a moment to hop the fence and get back home. Using Tom's mustache and uniform works well enough, but what about Sam's voice? Even if he doesn't fool Bob, he needs to at least fool the microphones. Maggie shows Sam what she found on Tom's phone, a video of Tom presumably playing with his 2 kids, something Maggie implies even he shouldn't have kept. In the recording, Tom is playing cops and robbers with his boys. Maggie can cut the video up into clips and cue them up to play when needed. This explains why Sam was barely speaking to Bob, and when he did, he used slightly bizarre bizarre language. Finally, Maggie used Tom's phone to reply to his supervisor. She sends a text about how the reports from 395, Bob and Linda's house, were false again, and to give them a red-eye ban if they call again because of the bad intel. Surprisingly, they go along with it, and this explains why Bob was cut off when calling to report Maggie again. It also opens up some interesting questions about the whole red eye thing. It's still unclear to me what is happening when one of those eyes goes red, but we'll learn more about that later. Back in the present, Sam asks Maggie if she's okay, and she breaks down about what they've done, calling herself a monster. Sam takes her hands and says that she's not a monster, she's a mom.
Made with only 9 ingredients and without aluminum or silicone. It's native.
You know what's frustrating? I've watched hours of French shows just hoping that the language will click, but it never does. So if you're like me and you're serious about learning a new language, then you should try this. I discovered Linda Pie, and it's changing the way that I work. It's TV, but smarter. Right now I'm learning French by watching actual French.
Says that she's not a monster, she's a mom. Episode 21, One More Time. Sam manages to calm his wife down, and they decide they should probably go back upstairs. Maggie says that if things go wrong, and let's face it, they probably will, this may be the last time they have together. After a moment, Sam simply asks her, big or little? She replies little, and we see what they were talking about. They just wanted to cuddle one last time, Maggie being the little spoon. Oh, come on, that's just cute. Next door, Bob explains what happened to Linda, and their eyes glow red. Linda asks Bob to help her find some tape to pack for Lakeview, and they go into the closet. Turns out that their closet is actually a Faraday cage lined with aluminum foil. Here, Bob can tell her all the details of what happened without the facade. He says that it may sound crazy, but he thinks maybe the officer was actually Sam dressed up. He thinks maybe Sam and Maggie murdered Officer Tom. Episode 22, Every Unhappy Family. After Bob pitches this theory, Linda just looks at him dumbfounded and then calls him an idiot. She mocks his idea and makes him feel stupid for coming up with it, which is hilarious because he's so dead on. Linda calls Sam and Maggie the two most spineless dipshits around. Of course they'd never have the balls to kill a cop. By the way, this is the first curse word in the series, and it actually probably indicates that Linda and Bob have had the Faraday closet for a while to be comfortable cursing like that. Anyway, Linda thinks they should leave early in the morning to Lakeview before anything goes down. Bob suggests leaving tonight, and Linda viciously mocks him again, since this would make them look guilty. He apologizes, and she says, it's okay, hun. This stuff just isn't in your nature. This scene really makes you hate Linda if you didn't already. The next morning, Sam brings Maggie a cup of coffee, although he refers to it as caffeine, saying he misses real beans. They remember a cute instance when their daughter brought Maggie a cup of mud and said it was coffee, which she accidentally drank. But reality sinks back in, and Sam says that maybe they'll actually pull this off. He asks Maggie why she didn't tell him about the foil to begin with, and she admits she wasn't sure if she could trust him after all these years. He apologizes for letting himself get comfortable with the hellish facade they're forced to put on, and for treating Maggie poorly in the process. They both say I love you, and then move on to the next order of business, Tom's body, which has been wrapped and taped up. Episode 23, One Body Problem. Late into the night, a woman named Laura makes a call to a police officer named Greg, asking if he's heard from Tom. It seems Laura is Tom's wife, and he hasn't come home yet. Greg assures her that he'll see what's going on with Tom, and that he's probably fine. Unaware, of course, that Tom is dead in a basement with his head bashed in. When the time is right, Sam and Maggie carry Tom's body over the fence into Bob and Linda's yard. With the kitchen window unlocked, thanks to Sam, they can sneak inside with the body. They head for the basement where they unwrap Tom's body, and we get another disgusting look at Tom's exposed brains and whatever that green goo is. Sam grabs the broken phone, tracker, and hammer and lays them by the body. Then the couple begin to sneak back out of the neighbor's house. Once they get upstairs, however, the hall light comes on, and it seems Linda is up and walking about. Episode 24, Desperate Times. Linda looks into the kitchen and spots the open window. Meanwhile, Maggie runs back downstairs for some reason. After a few moments, there's a jarring sound as the living room window is smashed. Linda runs over to inspect it, and this gives Sam and Maggie the chance to escape out of the kitchen window. Linda barely gets to the window when she hears even more noise outside, the couple climbing over the fence and being loud about it. But they manage to make it inside before Linda gets a look at them. Inside, Sam and Maggie are completely out of breath, death, but they manage to move the body and get back right before the 10-minute GPS reset, hopefully framing their neighbors for the murder. Sam asks Maggie what she threw out the window, and it turns out it was the hammer, which is why she ran back downstairs. Linda finds it in the yard and also happens to notice her neighbor's lights on. Sam freaks out over the hammer since it was covered in blood and goo and might lead to Linda looking into the basement. But Maggie reminds him it doesn't really matter at this point. They can't report it, so they're out of options. Bob and Linda inspect the hammer inside and decide it must definitely have something to do with Sam and Maggie, and decide to at least try to report them. But before they get very far, police lights flash through the windows. Soon there's a knock at the door and Linda opens it up. Outside, Officer Greg and another cop politely ask if she's seen their good friend Tom lately. Episode 25. Sam and Maggie see the cops at their neighbor's door and realize that this is where the rubber hits the road. They tell each other I love you and prepare to face the music. Shortly after, the second cop, Pete, knocks on their door and asks to come inside. Sam and Maggie put on a polite front. Turns out that Maggie actually called the police saying that she was woken up by a smashing sound next door and that there was a commotion. Officer Pete asks who was involved and Maggie playfully says it was probably just a lover spat. We've all been there. Pete thanks them for bringing it to their attention but follows by asking to see their basement. Sam shows him downstairs and we can see Maggie standing in the doorway, very reminiscent of when Tom walked down not so long ago. Before we see what happens, it jumps back to Officer Greg, who's asking Linda a few questions. Linda says she never met an Officer Tom when Bob barges in front of her and explains everything, showing him the hammer in a panic. He can't contain himself and eventually straight up tells Greg that he thinks the neighbors murdered his colleague Tom. The cop seems puzzled and Bob just starts rambling on about how he thinks it was Sam dressed as Tom who came over and that it's all a conspiracy. The officer says it's an interesting story, especially the fact that 1, Linda just said she never met Tom, and 2, he never mentioned anything about murder, making Bob seem guilty as hell. Greg then asks to see their basement. Speaking of which, back at Sam and Maggie's, the officer looks over their basement and doesn't find a thing. All of the aluminum foil has been removed. However, he has Sam and Maggie come with him to help straighten this whole thing out. Next door, Greg has just stumbled upon Tom's corpse in the basement and is disgusted at the sight of it. Bob and Linda are in a full freakout, saying over and over that it wasn't them. Poor bastards. Greg ignores them and says that they are found guilty of murder and that effective immediately, they are designated red status. Episode 26. No going back. Officer Pete shows up with Sam and Maggie and Greg tells him to stay up there. He's not going to want to see Tom like this. Linda says that Sam and Maggie were behind it and Maggie plays dumb, acting like she doesn't know what's wrong. Greg tells Pete what's happened and wonders what Tom found that would make Bob and Linda do this. Bob once again starts rambling about his conspiracy that Sam dressed as Tom and came over here. But Sam and Maggie ask why would he tell such awful lies? On top of that, this story sounds completely bogus.
Alright guys,
Suddenly,
that was
Linda
your
appears from the
message of
kitchen
flaming.
holding a knife. Bob and the police try to
Flaming
calm her
Maelstrom
down and
for
talk to her, but she realizes now
Titan
that they're red
Kingdom.
status that there's no talking it through. She runs up to
Fire
stab
and-
Maggie, but right before she can, Officer Pete hits her with a taser, dropping her to the ground. On her knees, she tells the other couple she hopes they're proud of themselves. They could have let them go. Officer Greg then officially changes them to red on his phone, causing their eyes to glow. In their
That's
eyes,
my
we
video,
see
guys.
a vision, all
See
in
you guys later.
red and white. Their 2 children
This is
standing
Giga Boys Are Dead. Signing out. Bye everyone. This is Giga Boys Are Dead. Signing out. Bye guys.
We then see the children start to step off the building. They say that they are actually lucky and that this is the most important part. We can see their white silhouettes falling rapidly from the extremely tall building. The kid continues saying, "We love you, Dad. You're a hero. Mom, I'm scared, but I'll be brave for him. Love you, Mom." Then 2 loud thuds. It zooms back out from Linda's eye as she screams in pure terror. As Bob and Linda stay on the ground mentally broken, Officer Greg says, "Okay, folks, now you can leave." Man, this was one insane